If you want people to treat you like a high value woman, these micro habits do it fast. No personality makeover necessary. And by the end, you know exactly which of the two habits will immediately create the biggest respect shift. I've spent thousands of hours sitting across brilliant women who are doing the work, high performers, smart, capable, delivering, but frustrated because they're not being perceived at the level of their competence. And what shifted for them, it was never about doing more. It was about calibrating the authority signals. And here's what I see most often that competent women get wrong. They think value is created by doing more output, more responsiveness, more helpfulness, more proving. But this perception of value isn't created by volume. Again, it's created by authority signals. And what's fascinating in watching these women that go through this transition is that the ones that actually transition from high performers to high value leaders didn't change their intelligence, their talent, their work ethics. They actually changed these micro habits, tiny internal shifts that created visible external authority. This is about changing from being the doer in the room to being the woman who people instinctively look to when things matter. So let's start with the first one. The perception of high value is intrinsically connected to a nervous system regulation, not charisma, not how loud you are, not dominance, but regulation. In session after session, I saw women talk about this nervous, anxious, busy energy, talking quickly, filling the space, leaning forward, explaining too much, offering to fix things quickly. And none of this comes from incompetence. Oh God, we know that we are capable. We can do it, right? It comes from care. But perception wise, that reads or that can read anxious. This micro habit is simple. Before entering a room, before responding to a challenge, before answering a loaded question, take 3 slow breaths. That's it. I know it sounds so simple, but here's why it changes everything. When you pause, you move away from the fight or flight response and you move into your own embodied intelligence. Trust me on this one. Your shoulders drop. You start moving slower and developing more gravitas. Your eye contact steadies. You stop reacting and you actually start holding the room captive. And the women that I work with, when they do this, then they hear things like, you seem so regal. You seem to walk with such purpose. You seem to have such a calm center. Notice this phrase, calm center. High value women are not the loudest in the room. They're the ones stabilizing the energy in the room with their presence. Instead of rushing to manage and fix the chaos, they let the room settle around them. Instead of filling the space, they let silence work for them. And silence is power. When you pause before speaking, try it out. People lean in. When you don't scramble to respond, people think you're thinking strategically. This one shift alone can help shift how you're perceived in one single meeting. And if you want to know more what it's like to focus on yourself and detach in silence, I just made a video about that and I'll leave a link in the description. But this gets even stronger when you combine it with the next micro habit, because this is where high performing women tend to get small and shrink their perceived value because they over index on proving. Sound familiar? Constantly asking yourself, am I doing okay? Is this good? What else can I take on? When you do this, you're subtly seeking for approval. And it reads as I need reassurance. Instead, try this micro habit. Replace seeking validation with strategic positioning. Instead of asking others, how am I doing? Ask, like one of my clients asked her manager, what are you betting that I can do that others can't? Or something like, what's the bigger goal that we're both aiming at here? Feel the difference? One question seeks safety, the other signals partnership. You move from subordinate taking orders to stakeholder in the outcome, from do you like me kind of energy to let's win this together kind of energy. And here's the perception shift. Leadership doesn't invest on people who ask for crumbs. They invest on people who understand the game. For example, when you focus on, let's say, the business pain points or other people's pain points, instead of seeking for validation, you become an asset. You become someone others like to bet on. And this also shows up externally because high value women build on distinction. They're not trying to fit into a cookie cutter mold. They showcase their uniqueness by being themselves in how they do what they do. Their network reflects it, their positioning reflects it, their language reflects it. They don't beg for inclusion. They build the relationships where they become indispensable. Now, let's talk about the third habit because this is where you really take the reins of your own brand. And let me clarify how I like to define brand because the way I see it and the way I see it living in my, working with my clients is that brand is not a logo, is not a post on Instagram or link or a LinkedIn page. If you think about it, is how you are able to control the narrative of your story by influencing how people experience you. High value women don't wait for others to determine or narrate their worth. They control the message. So, the micro habit that can change this is when you make declarative statements rather than passive reporting. So, for example, you don't just come and say, hey, I just want to give you an update, but rather you come and you say, you know what? Let's talk about our wins, what we accomplished and why that's important, and what what next steps or why that's unlocking. That is narrative control. You highlight the outcome before being asked, the shared win. You point the trail of work. You anchor the impact. And internally, this requires something really powerful. You have to own all parts of yourself, the intensity, the diplomacy, the expertise. You're not trying to be soft enough or sharp enough. You are adapting to context. Sometimes you're the diplomat. Sometimes you're the dragon lady. And sure, sometimes you're the expert. High value women are persistent about growth, not perfection. One client replaced her high anxiety spiral with one shift. At the end of a meeting, she would just close by anchoring one win and one delta, not for reassurance, but for recalibration. That shifted her from unnecessary anxiety to grounded self confidence. And her presence became contagious because she was no longer waiting to be defined. She was defining herself and how she was being perceived at the end of each meeting. If you want the fastest respect shift, focus on these two things: the power pause and the strategic partnership language. Why? Because it immediately changes how you feel internally and how others perceive you externally. The pause regulates your body. Strategic questions reposition your status. Together, they stop the disconnect between how people perceive you and your competence. And if you're still executing, but pushing harder is not offering you the results, that's exactly what I work with. There's a link in the description to apply for a strategy call because this is rarely about your skills. It's about calibration, high value perception, is not about becoming someone else or becoming more or better. It's about eliminating the micro leaks of your authority. Stop rushing. Stop seeking for crumbs. Stop waiting for others to tell your story. Start pausing, start partnering, and start controlling the narrative of your life. High value isn't loud, it's regulated, strategic, direct, and once you embody that, the room adjusts.